Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. I'm Randy Wright, and I'll be your captain on this memorial special tribute edition of our state-of-the-art radio program. Folks, as you are all aware, yesterday, Associate Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia passed away. He was a powerful figure in American jurisprudence, in so much as he brought the country back towards constitutional originalism. You know, before he set foot into the Supreme Court, when he was appointed by Ronald Reagan in 1986, the court had been dominated by various competing schools of legal philosophy. Jurisprudence is the term for legal philosophy. It is the core set of beliefs that both attorneys and judges hold with respect to the law and the way that the law applies to our daily lives. During the early part of the 20th century, the entire judicial branch had been influenced by the overbearing figure of Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. had been a veteran of the American Civil War, and he opposed the natural law doctrine that underpins our entire representative Republican form of government. He practiced a type of legal philosophy known as legal realism, and though it fell out of favor with the end of World War II, because legal realism is a type of doctrine that the National Socialist German Workers' Party adhered to, the Nazis adhered to during World War II, various remnants of his philosophy remained. We would call it colloquially today judicial activism. It's the sort of thing where judges are believed to be empowered to create law, to act as a secondary legislature. But that is absolutely against everything that Antonin Scalia believed. And he brought back this idea of go back to the original intent of the founding fathers, interpret the law with respect to the Constitution, not to foreign law, not to other experiences. The only thing that ultimately matters is the Constitution, because the Constitution, in and of itself, is the supreme law of the land. That was a monumental step in changing the course of conservative jurists for 3 decades and for setting a new benchmark for American jurisprudence. And clearly, I can speak to this a little bit personally, because though I never met Justice Scalia, he did design the curriculum at my law school. I went to Ave Maria School of Law, which is now in Naples, Florida. It was based on this idea of constitutional originalism. It was based on adhering to the fundamental natural law principles, and he had a huge impact on me, on the way that I developed as an attorney, on my philosophical outlook with respect to the Constitution and the way that it applies to real world scenarios and situations. It's something that we just cannot ignore. It is a major part of our nation. It defines who we are. And that was something that Scalia innately understood. You could see it in his opinions, and you could see it in his dissents. And it's truly tragic that we lost him, because we really have lost a pillar of the court. We have lost a strong advocate for the Constitution. But it's important to recall how Scalia would want us to react to this. You know, Ben Shapiro put out a piece in which he said that the death of Scalia could mark the end of the Constitution. And I'd like to think that I'd have some insight into how he would respond, seeing I was trained in my legal outlook based on the curriculum he designed. And I can imagine him saying, no, the Constitution will survive. No matter what adversity, no matter what challenge, no matter how many hurdles are put in place, the Constitution will overcome. Our founding fathers faced more dire circumstances than what we are currently facing. And it is up to we, the people, to be proactive, to maintain and safeguard our fundamental and unalienable rights. And that is an indelible lesson that Scalia had for us all. It is certainly the mark that he has left on American legal history. And his impact will not soon be forgotten, and I doubt it will ever be forgotten. We still know of the impacts of Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. We still know of the negative types of things that he created in giving the federal government a lot more power than it ever was designed to have. I think that the legacy of Scalia will be putting an end to that, starting to restore this country to the Constitution. And there are plenty of conservative-minded legal philosophers, legal academicians, and legal practitioners who will carry on the banner of what Scalia believed. But we must also absolutely respect his desire that this current president not be the one who picks the appointment for his replacement. And there is an 80-year precedent in this country not to select a new Supreme Court justice during an election year. And one of the most poignant examples of that goes to one of the most ideologically opposite Supreme Court justices to Scalia. Go back to 1968. Chief Justice Earl Warren stepped down. Now, granted, it's different to die while in office than it is to step down, but nevertheless, it still creates the vacancy. And it was not filled during 1968 because that was an election year. It was decided that the outlook of the court should be dependent upon the next president. That way, the people have more of a direct input on that selection. Because let's face it, Obama is not the future. As much as Obama might like to consider that he is the future, that he is the end-all be-all, that he wants to reach out and have one last hurrah before fading away, as we can only hope that he will. But no, he should not have this one last hurrah. His legacy is over. It is time for the next president to have a say. And that is absolutely in line with our representative Republican form of government. And it is in line with what Scalia would want as well. The court can continue with 8 justices. If there is a plurality decision, meaning an equal 4-4 vote, then the precedents established by the lower court will stand. There's a long history of that occurring in the United States. We have not always had 9 justices sitting on the highest court in the land. And therefore, we need to stay true to the roots and heritage of this country. And the way to do that is to honor his memory, to honor his wishes and desires, his hopes and aspirations. That is what he would expect us as popular sovereigns to do. Yes, these are frightening times. But if there is one thing that Scalia loved about the American people, it's that they have an indomitable spirit. He told a group of college graduates, and I'm going to paraphrase here, never give up on your principles unless your principles are that of Adolf Hitler, then compromise whenever possible. But the true crux of what he was getting at with that statement in his commencement address back in 2010 is that You can't fold on your principles. You cannot be afraid of the consequences for standing up for your principles. You have to be stalwart and true to your principles, just as he was on the bench. And I would reach out to all of the conservative justices sitting on the bench and say, remember his legacy. Respect his legacy. Do not betray the Constitution. Do not turn your back on the popular sovereigns. This is a crucial and critical time in the United States. Jeremy and I have said on past episodes that the United States of America is in the midst of an identity crisis right now. That is absolutely true. It is absolutely something that we are facing right now. But I don't believe that we should give up hope or faith in the American people and this great representative republic of ours. I don't think that this is some calamitous end that is going to be Armageddon for this republic of ours. We must remain steadfast in solidarity and unity, in supporting and promoting the ideas that Scalia had, because Scalia has been that steady, conscious light of conservatism in the American judiciary. He has been that unwavering paragon of constitutional values on the courts. And yes, there were times when I disagreed with his rulings. That's always going to be the case with judges. There were times he was unhappy with the outcomes of even his own decisions. He said, if you are always happy with the outcomes as a judge, you're not being a good judge. What is important to take from all of this is that no matter what the hurdles are, no matter what challenges we face, the natural law tenets that underpin our Constitution are timeless. And that was a central and integral part of Antonin Scalia's approach to the judiciary. That is the approach that more people must adopt. Remember what I said before, that we can't just expect instant gratification, that we can't just expect this nation to turn around overnight, and we certainly cannot expect a singular presidential candidate or president or individual to save this country. That duty and that obligation and that responsibility falls squarely on the shoulders of we, the people, the true ultimate wielders of sovereignty of this country, the true wielders of power in this country. And that was one of the things that Scalia loved about this representative republic of ours. It was the faith that it put in the people, the foresight that our founding fathers had, and the way that the Constitution is applicable just as much today as it was at the inception of this country. The Constitution is the lifeblood of the country, and Scalia absolutely believed that. It was a central tenet for him. It's why he said that the Constitution's not a living document. It's dead, dead, dead. And he got attacked by the left for that, and even some conservatives who didn't realize what he was saying. He was saying that the Constitution cannot be a living document because it's based on natural law tenets, which make it timeless. If something is timeless, it cannot be alive, because to be alive would insinuate and infer that it could be killed. But the Constitution cannot be killed. Our fundamental and unalienable rights, which are endowed to us by our Creator, cannot be taken away from us without due process under the law. These were central tenets to Scalia's philosophy. And I think that just as the natural law is timeless, his philosophy and approach to judicial reasoning and legal thought are timeless as well, because they are part of that great representative Republican form of government, that great Constitution, which is the longest uninterrupted constitutional document or governmental document in all of world history. Folks, again, that is such an important aspect of this country's history, of this country's present day, and of this country's future. And that's absolutely the way that I think Justice Scalia would tell us to approach this, to tell us to look upon this. He would not want us to be worried to the point of thinking that the country is beyond repair. We must never give up faith or hope in the ability of this country to be what it was designed to be. That was the approach he took to the Supreme Court, and it drastically changed the court's approach to jurisprudence. It drastically reshaped the outlook of the court, and it gave us some great decisions. Yes, there is a threat if Obama is allowed to get an appointee through, or if he tries to shirk Congress again and tries to use executive orders to appoint a Supreme Court justice, that we could see the Second Amendment obliterated, that we could see so many liberties in this country trampled upon. But you want to know how we stop this? We become vocal. We become proactive. We become the type of citizens that our founding fathers always expected us to be. That is our duty. That is our obligation. That is what, because it is expected of us. And it's not just our founding fathers that would expect us to do this. I wholeheartedly believe that Antonin Scalia would expect us to do this as well. And we owe it to him. Just as we owe it to our founding fathers, just as we owe it to every other popular sovereign living within the United States of America. You know, folks, we are standing at a watershed moment in American history, where we can continue to walk down the path of failed policies like what we have seen with this Barack Hussein Obama regime, or we can return to the natural law tenets that have lifted this country up to unimaginable heights in our relative, short, yet illustrious history. And I say relatively short because when you compare how long the United States of America has existed to most every other nation on the face of the planet, we are a fairly young nation. And we have accomplished great things in a short span of time. In the big picture of things, in the long term of things, the scale of history is absolutely a great teacher here. And Scalia used it as a teacher for himself and for the other justices, and indeed for the American people. When you look at the original intent of the Founding Fathers, you're looking at the very history of this country. You're looking at the DNA of the country. You're seeing how the country was devised in the spirit that it was intended to be devised. And you realize that the natural law tenets are adaptable, meaning that because they're timeless, they fit any and every generation. And when there are times when the Constitution cannot adapt to it, Article 5 gives us a process to amend the Constitution to address the problems that it just could not adapt to. That is part of the natural law principles that absolutely defined and define this country still. And Scalia understood this. He innately understood this. He believed it and he practiced it. And we cannot lose sight of that. It is so easy to lose sight of that when you look at all of the calamities that are facing the United States of America right now. But we have to put that aside and recall that this country has faced so many challenges in its past, that we have had a Supreme Court that was stuffed with agent provocateurs for tyranny and despotism. Think back to FDR's court-packing scheme. We survived those long years. We have overcome these challenges, and we will continue to adapt and overcome. That is what it means to be an American citizen. And that, I believe, is the very message that Justice Scalia would tell us to follow. Because it would fit with his core philosophy. It would fit with the way he applied the law. And yes, it is very tragic that we lost him, but he would tell us not to mourn. He would tell us to look forward with the Constitution clutched in our hearts, in our spirits, and in our minds, and to never give up. That is an indelible lesson that should resound with every American citizen, because it is the story of we, the American people, the true popular sovereigns in this great representative republic. It is absolutely the key characteristic that defines us. It distinguishes us from every other nation on the face of the earth. And that is of monumental importance because it propels us to the future. It tells us how we can adapt and overcome all of these problems, adapt to and overcome all of these problems that are facing us. He led through example, and his example is a resounding message of hope. And that is why I cannot say that I will embrace a type of fear now, to be afraid. Yes, there are dangers for this country, and yes, I fear for the country, but my overwhelming, my resounding feeling right now is that of hope. I see a bright future for the United States of America. I see a pathway to save this country, just as Antonin Scalia did. And we can absolutely save this country. But again, folks, it comes to us, we the people. And that's exactly what Scalia would tell us. He would tell us, you want to save this country, it's your duty and responsibility to do so. It's absolutely your duty and responsibility to do so. And the other thing that we as American people can do that would be just like what Scalia would want us to do, he's famous for his biting dissents where he disagreed with the majority of the court. Well, we, the American people, have the power to voice our dissent. And we will voice it. Make no mistake about that. The voice of the American people will not be silenced. We will not tolerate any further deviation, detour, or divorcement from our shared Constitution. That is the reality that we must accept. We must absolutely accept the responsibility that is placed squarely on our shoulders, because that is the way that our founding fathers intended this country to be, and that's exactly what Justice Scalia would want from us. His brilliance and his insight was to the point that he understood the correct application of the Constitution, just as Clarence Thomas does, just as Samuel Alito does. But nobody has been as stalwart with it, or as vocal, or unbending in his support of the Constitution as Justice Scalia. And yes, these are dark times in our country, but we as Americans will persevere as we have always persevered. Scalia was persevering through a very bad time in the Supreme Court during this last session. There were some monumentally stupid and ridiculous decisions handed down by the Supreme Court. Obergefell was a resoundingly stupid and disastrous decision. The Affordable Care Act Part 2 decision was another resoundingly stupid and disastrous opinion. That said, we can persevere, we can overcome, we can take back the political branches of government, and then we can reshape the court. Because let's say Obama does get his way. That means for 11 months, the court will be decidedly in the Fabian socialist camp. But I have all the faith in the world that we will see a conservative victory in this election cycle. And there are two liberal justices, for lack of a better term, two Fabian socialist justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Justice Breyers, who are going to go out in the next 5 years at the latest. And we will see the opportunity to redefine the court. And it won't be as great of a majority as it would be had Scalia survived. But Scalia would absolutely expect us to move forward with that type of hope, with that unwavering belief in our Republican form of government. That is what we must put our faith in, because it is absolutely inspired by Providence. It is the most open, free, and honest system that has ever been devised by the hands of men, while also being inspired by the Almighty. Once you make that realization, you can see that the country is not just going to disappear. As long as the spirit of the American people are still here, and as long as the Constitution remains, even if only titularly, the head of this country, the heart of this country, the law of this country, the only way that it can be taken away is if we, the people, allow it to be. So again, that's why I remind you that we must be proactive in maintaining and safeguarding our fundamental and unalienable rights, as well as the Constitution, which safeguards those fundamental and unalienable rights. That is an intrinsic part of the American character, spirit, heritage, and above all, identity. And Antonin Scalia would expect us to do just that, to stand up for these things, to defend these things, to maintain these things, and to hand these things down to the up-and-coming generations and to those generations that are yet to be born. His message to graduates was always one of hope. He innately understood and believed that the country can overcome any and all obstacles in our path, because we've done it since our inception over 200 years ago. A lot has happened in 200 years, but our Constitution has withstood the test of time, and if we, the people, continue to support and adhere to it and love it as we do, it will withstand the test of time currently. That doesn't mean that there aren't fierce battles up ahead, yet to be fought, The struggle will always be continuous because we must be ever vigilant and ready to stand up for and defend the Constitution at any given time. That is just part of a free system. But we can rest assured that this country will not fall into the hands of the Fabian socialists if we, the American people, remain resolute, popular sovereigns as our founding fathers intended for this country to be. One thing that Antonin Scalia would tell us with respect to the current situation facing the country is that now more than ever, jurisprudence matters. Now more than ever, we must embrace constitutional originalism because this is a fight for survival for the country. Yes, Ben Shapiro was right that there are major threats facing this country. I won't deny that. But if we embrace the type of indomitable spirit that our founding fathers had, and that indeed Antonin Scalia himself had, I believe that we can overcome any and every hurdle and obstacle that arises. That is part and parcel what it means to be an American, because everywhere we turn, the true spirit of the Constitution remains with us in so much as the popular sovereigns still believe in it. I full-heartedly believe that, and I think that Scalia believed that as well. And we also have a true constitutional conservative running for the highest office in the land. He will absolutely be left with the choice of determining who the next appointees for the Supreme Court will be. And that makes this election take on a whole new significance. Nobody has a better understanding of the inner workings of the Supreme Court who is currently running for office than Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz was very fond and is very fond of the memory and the man who was Antonin Scalia. You know, Cruz argued in front of the Supreme Court 9 times. Folks, that is phenomenal. And it gave him a key insight into the inner workings of the legal brilliance that Anton Scalia brought to the judiciary. And that is why I think it's so important that we honor his legacy by making the correct decision in this 2016 presidential election cycle. We are being called upon once again as the popular sovereigns of this great representative republic to stand up for our core values, principles, and beliefs. There is no other way to approach this. There is no other alternative for us. And therefore, we should not view these times as totally dark, because there is really that glimmer of hope that sticks out for all of us, that is there for all of us to see, that is there for all of us to achieve. And Anton Scalia would absolutely tell us to grasp onto that and to never let go. It's still the same thing that he told those college graduates back in 2010. Never back down or compromise with respect to your principles. So to the Cruz voters out there, I say, keep up the good fight. Keep up the good fight, because this is the fight to preserve the lifeblood of this great nation of ours. We cannot turn our backs to it. We cannot forget what past generations sacrificed to build this great nation. And again, we can make the nation greater than it currently is. And that was something that Antonin Scalia innately and inherently understood as well. It's why he never gave up hope, despite being ostracized, at least by the press, and certainly by the radical fringes and extreme elements of the left in this country, and despite being on the dissenting side more often than he should have been, because he understood that the process works, and the process does work, as long as we, the American people, maintain it. You see, that's where our proactive role ties into all of this. That is where our duty and our obligation comes in. And I absolutely believe that we can continue to operate in the spirit that Antonin Scalia would expect of us, because it is our duty and obligation. And we are the popular sovereigns of this great representative republic. And therefore, the best way to honor and remember this paragon of constitutional values, this true adherent of the Constitution, would be to live our lives in the manner that the Constitution allows, and to do whatever is necessary and proper to maintain that great birthright for the up-and-coming generations and for those generations that have yet to be born. That is our duty and our obligation and our responsibility. And you can see that it takes on a new meaning. After this tragedy, it absolutely takes on a new, robust meaning that must absolutely be carried out by we the people. It's not an easy task, but our founding fathers did not have an easy task. It's not something to be taken lightly, and again, our founding fathers did not take it lightly. You see, we in the United States of America are truly so very fortunate to have the system that we do. And yes, the system is under direct threat. We saw the way that Obama just marched out and said, yeah, Scalia's a great guy, now we're going to replace him, just immediately. He didn't even really give time for the family to grieve, for the people to grieve. And that is a dishonor. So let's refuse to allow Obama to continue to dishonor the memory of this great justice by standing up for the principles that our founding fathers adhered to, and to the principles that were cherished by this stalwart of constitutional originalism. This is how we can make this country great, and how we can build upon everything that our founding fathers believed in. But it is going to take a true principled constitutionalist to see that the direction of the court is shifted in the right way. That falls upon the shoulders of we the people to make that determination. And I'm going to tell you right now, from everything that I have seen, with respect to the candidates who are currently vying for the highest office in the land, there is only one candidate who absolutely adheres to the Constitution, and that is Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz had glowing things to say about Antonin Scalia, and there's a reason. He clerked for Chief Justice Rehnquist when he got out of law school, so he had a chance to actually get to personally know Antonin Scalia. Then he argued in front of the Supreme Court 9 times. Everyone who's ever done that, and I can't speak to that from personal experience because I never have argued in front of the Supreme Court. I've been at the Supreme Court when monumental decisions were handed down. I was there the day the decision for Lawrence v. Texas was handed down. And it's a fascinating environment to see. The way that place just buzzes to life. when a decision's being handed down, even if the decision's not a good decision, because certainly Lawrence v. Texas, at least in my opinion, was not a good decision. Nevertheless, the process that occurs within that court, you can see the essence of this country operating within it. You can see the continuation of the vision that our founding fathers had for this country. And to get to know somebody who absolutely represented everything that is, as Ted Cruz and all of those who have argued in front of the Supreme Court have with Antonin Scalia, it's an amazing thing. Scalia's style of questioning, if you ever go and listen to the Oye Project, which has a bunch of the audio recordings of past Supreme Court oral arguments, the way that he used that to make arguments to the other justices, that's amazing. That is the way that the founding fathers intended for the court to do. And I really do suggest that if you have the time to go look up the Oye Project, that's spelled Oyez, and just listen to some of these arguments. It may be cut and dry in some cases, but if you actually think of it as the process that it is when you're listening to it, it's a beautiful thing to behold. And it takes a really talented orator to be able to go up there and present an argument and win. And the fact that Ted Cruz had done that numerous times at such a young age is truly incredible. Most attorneys will never argue in front of the Supreme Court. I probably will never argue in front of the Supreme Court. My grandfather did. And that has been inspirational to me. And I'm so proud that my grandfather did get to live to see Scalia put into the Supreme Court. He died a year after, but to know that that connection is there, and to know that we have the opportunity to fulfill the goals, hopes, and aspirations of this great jurist, of Antonin Scalia, that should be inspirational to the American people. We should all, each and every one of us, draw inspiration from this and absolutely dedicate ourselves to accomplishing that task. That would be the best way to honor the memory of this great man who fought for and defended the Constitution at every given opportunity. We, the American people, absolutely have that opportunity right here and right now. But we have to be willing to embrace our national identity. We have to be willing to take the principled stand that Scalia would take. And that means that we must absolutely apply pressure to both houses of Congress to stand steadfast, stalwart in their conviction of representing we the people. We must let it be known that Obama will not have his chance to completely cement the destruction of this country. Because mark my words, that's exactly what he's frothing at the mouth in his attempts to do. That's exactly what he wants to do. But we will not stand for it. We will not tolerate it. We will not allow this country to be handed over to the Fabian socialists who want to do everything in their power to destroy it. We made that perfectly clear in the midterm elections of 2014. And there are still decent, hard-working representatives and senators who do stand up for the American people. Yes, the leadership may not, but they've already put out the signs that they're going to try to. We just need to hold the fire to their feet and to remind them that they work for us and that our determination and that our desires here are what matter most. That is what Antonin Scalia would expect of us. And we absolutely must live up to that duty, responsibility, and obligation. I have faith that the American people will do the right thing, and I have faith that we will come out of these dark and dangerous times a stronger, better America than we are now. And the reason I can say that is I look out at the great conservative minds in this country, those who are doing everything in their power to preserve and protect the Constitution. And I'm uplifted. I see that there are more people who are like-minded, who are doing their part to save this country. And that is why I get behind this microphone. It's because I want to share this optimism with you. I want to inspire you to be empowered, to take the steps that are necessary to make this country everything that it was meant to be. Because that is what we as popular sovereigns are absolutely supposed to do. That is what our founding fathers intended for us to do. And again, I know this is not an easy option or an easy path, but nothing worth having ever comes easily. That is another message that Scalia would tell us. He would tell us to understand that, to innately and inherently understand that, and to never give up. And you see, that is what allowed us to win the American War of Independence, even though we came so close to losing it on more than one occasion. It was our ability to come together as Americans and to say, no, this adversity will not stop us. No, these enemies of liberty, these agent provocateurs of tyranny, despotism, and oppression, these wannabe potentates will not destroy this great expanse of liberty that has been established by our founding fathers. That is the same courageous spirit that we must embrace right here and right now to save this country. And I have absolute and total faith that we will, that we can, and that we must. Because I understand that the American people are the beneficiaries of the greatest birthright of any people on the face of the planet, and that is our shared Constitution. The Constitution is the backbone of this country. It is the cornerstone that built this great representative republic, and it is our duty and obligation to ensure that it never fades from this earth. And we have to understand that. That is why it is so important to have a fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared United States Constitution. Because when we have that knowledge and understanding of that great foundational document, that great social contract that exists between every red-blooded American citizen and their government, then we know the steps that we must take to preserve and protect it. And isn't it empowering to know that we, the American people, as the popular sovereigns, hold the key, and the key is the Constitution. Make no mistake about it, folks, the key to salvation for this country is the Constitution. That has always been the case. It will always be the case, so long as the popular sovereigns remain unified in purpose. And I say that it is time that we as conservatives do become unified in purpose, that we coalesce behind a true constitutional conservative that will honor the memory of Antonin Scalia, that will work to cement his legacy to be handed down for generations yet to come. That is the important purpose and message that we must adhere to, and we must do it now, because this country is absolutely in a fight for its life. Scalia understood this. That's why he kept fighting. Let's take up the mantle in honor of his memory and continue to lead the fight as he would. Because that is exactly what he would expect us as popular sovereigns to do. That is our duty and our obligation and our responsibility, and Americans are not quitters. History has shown time and again that the American people are indomitable. So long as they adhere to the principles of the Constitution, which make them great and powerful, that is such an inspirational and positive message. That is the message that Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz conveys. And we, as popular sovereigns, are absolutely endowed with that to create something greater than what's here. And that's what our founding fathers expected us to do. They didn't just expect us to hand down these fundamental and inalienable rights to the up-and-coming generations as is. They expected us to expand upon it, to make those rights even more secure than they were when they were handed to us. And we, the American people, the true wielders of sovereignty in this representative republic of ours, are handed a golden opportunity to do so. It's just unfortunate that Justice Scalia cannot be there to see it, but he will be there in spirit, and we will honor his spirit. That is the commitment that each and every one of us as popular sovereigns must make, and we will make it. I am confident, supremely confident, that the American people will make the right decision, that we will take the steps that are necessary to secure the polity of this great republic of ours, as it is expected of us to do so. And you can see that spirit is there as more and more people are involved in the political process now than they have been for years. That speaks volumes about the people. The people are informing themselves. The people are coming together as a cohesive unit to defend their rights. That is why I say it is so important that we band together and support a true constitutionalist. Because in this hour of need for the nation, we must absolutely stand up for those sacred principles that made us the great country that we are today. That is our solemn duty and obligation. That was one of the keystone messages that Antonin Scalia had whenever he ruled or made rulings or wrote a dissent. He thought it was his duty and obligation to hand down the principles of the Constitution to future jurists. That is the duty and obligation that a real constitutionalist adheres to. Those are the spirits and principles that we, as the popular sovereigns of this great representative republic, absolutely should embrace. And I think he would expect us to. And again, that's why I caution Ben Shapiro, whom I respect and admire greatly, not to get too negative in your view. Don't become pessimistic, because you've got to have faith that the American people can and will bring this country back from the brink of ruination. Think of the hard times and the close calls that our founding fathers experienced throughout that long and bitter struggle of the American War of Independence. On numerous occasions, the cause teetered on the brink of collapse. There were times that the Army seemed as though it were just days away from fading away and disappearing, becoming a thing of the past, dooming the cause of liberty and independence right then and there for posterity. But our founding fathers never gave up hope. They never stopped trying. They never stopped working. And that is the same spirit that I see working in the land right here, now, today. That is why I say we must support a true constitutionalist like Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz embodies the type of jurisprudential thought that was promoted and advocated for by Antonin Scalia. As we are in this period of great strife in this country, it is now more important than ever that we, as the popular sovereigns of the United States of America, absolutely accept our duties and obligations and responsibilities. We must ensure that this country does not pass away into the annals of history, to become a footnote of history, to say that the agent provocateurs of despotism and tyranny were able to work their magic and destroy the most open, honest, and free government that this world has ever seen. You see, the spirit of our founding fathers lived in the person of Antonin Scalia. And the spirit of our founding fathers lives on in Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz. Just as I wholeheartedly believe that the spirit of our founding fathers lives on in all of the popular sovereigns. Again, folks, it is within our power to save this country, and it is in our power alone to save this country. We must be the ones that are prepared to step up to the plate and take full responsibility for our actions. We must be the ones that proactively work to correct the path of this country, to pull us away from this path to ruination and destruction, as Fabian socialism would only offer ruination and destruction. And we must be the ones who proactively claim and proclaim for everyone to hear that we are the popular sovereigns of the United States of America, and no, we will not allow our country to be stolen from us. We will not allow our country to be pushed off the edge of despair into the rocky abyss of oblivion and ruin. That is such a powerful message. And it is a message that we saw time and again in Scalia's decisions. His love for the country cannot be questioned. It was there in every carefully crafted word that he placed, either in a majority opinion or in a dissenting opinion. It absolutely represented the hallmark of greatness with respect to the way that our government works, with respect to the way that our founding fathers intended for this nation to work. And isn't it a beautiful thing to see it work? And that's why, again, I say it's so important that we carry on the mantle of his memory, that we pick up the banner of his cause and charge into the future, so that it is never fading from this country. We are endowed with the power to ensure that his legacy lives on. We, the American people, have much more power than we ourselves realize. As the great popular sovereigns in this country, as the ultimate wielders of sovereignty in this country, we wield incredible power. And it is time to remind all of those who occupy the halls of Congress, all of those who have sworn an oath of office to uphold and defend the Constitution, that we are going to hold them accountable to that oath and obligation, and that we are going to hold them accountable for their deeds and actions, as only popular sovereigns can. We must not back down in the face of adversity. Our forefathers and ancestors did not, nor do I think shall we. It goes against every fiber of our existence to become tepid or timid in the face of a challenge. We are the United States of America. We have overcome every challenge that has ever come our way. And we can overcome the challenge of Fabian socialism. We can defeat it. But we must believe in our ability to do so. There is no way around that, folks. And that is exactly what Antonin Scalia would tell us if he were here to tell us today. So I look out at you, America, and I seek to remind you that we are the best chance of honoring the memory of this great jurist. He understood that, he believed in it, and he would expect us to do exactly that. That is the path that we must accept now. That is what we must do now. We cannot turn away from it. We cannot back down. Our duty and our obligation is sacred, just as the Constitution itself is sacred. That is the immortal lesson that we can learn from the great Antonin Scalia. That is the message that we can take to heart and that we can hand to future generations. Never lose sight of that. Always maintain faith in yourself, faith in this country, faith in our foundational image, because that is what Scalia would expect of us. And with that said, it is time for us to begin our descent. Folks, thank you for listening. I hope that we can all coalesce behind the true leader who will secure the future of Scalia's legacy. Thank you again, and we will see you next time. Do take care.